So the Tesla Cybertruck car bombing in Las Vegas has turned into the craziest, reverse psyop story ever. And it's still developing, but I'm going to run through all of the evidence in all directions that I have found so far, so hopefully it's easy to kind of pick up where we're at right now.
So this guy's name is Ian Carroll, and Ian Carroll posted this video, but Joe Rogan had shared it. So Joe Rogan is peddling in conspiracy theories. These are the motherfuckers that are in power now, and they're still acting just as crazy as they were, a couple months ago.
Now, and see what comes next. First thing, super iconic, not an accident. But the question is, not an accident, why? And who's actually behind it? Because the media is pinning everything on Matthew Allen Livelsberger because they found his passport and his ID and a bunch of stuff of his in the car. Though the car blew up, passports always survive. And he's an active duty Green Beret that's been stationed mostly out of Germany and Colorado. And the Green Beret community is digging into this deep and getting sources. And there's so much that's not adding up.
Okay, so he had just mentioned why was the gun burnt up, but the passport wasn't. There's a lot of things that wasn't burnt up. You still could see the mortars, you could still see the fireworks, you could still see the casings, the truck wasn't completely blown up. So is it possible that some of his stuff was burnt up and the other stuff wasn't burnt up? So I'm going to debunk a lot of this stuff, but there is a lie. There is one lie that I have actually caught the media on, and I'll tell you about it in a second.
And then yesterday, I think it was, the plot super duper thickened when the Sean Ryan show had this whole expose on this whistleblower scenario where he had Sam Shoemate on, who had apparently gotten an email from this Green Beret dude the day before the bombing. And the email is crazy spicy, but it's a little suspicious. If you haven't seen the Sean Ryan Show podcast episode yet, you should watch at least the first 30 to 45 minutes. Put it on 2x speed. You should not believe everything that is said at face value. Remember, both these guys are military intelligence assets, former and current. This is the alleged email that Mr. Shoemate received.
So when it comes to Occam's razor is that the simplest explanation is most likely the truth. So I'll just tell you what the lie was. So I had read that there was an intraoral. He had shot himself before the explosion. He had shot himself intraoral, which means he shot himself inside the mouth. But if you slow the video up, you could see several things. First of all, you could see his hand move. You could see that he's still in the truck. You could see that he's still in the truck. His head had moved and his hand had raised up to his temple. Some people said it looked like he was just touching his head or maybe making a phone call or maybe pointing a gun at his head. So the lie is, while he shot himself, he didn't shoot himself before the explosion. He would have shot himself during the explosion if that was a gun when he pointed it to his head. But he pointed it to his temple. He pointed the gun to his temple. He didn't put the gun inside of his mouth. And then people are saying this is such a powerful gun. It's a Desert Eagle 6, 50 caliber. So it would have blew his head off and then the gun would have shot out of his hand 50 miles away or some shit. Even if it was powerful, it's inside a truck, which is, windows are rolled up and the sides are apparently reinforced. So I think it's entirely plausible, if not most likely, that the explosion happened and then he started thinking, well, that's going to hurt. And so, heck, it might just be easier to take a Desert Eagle 6, 50 caliber to the side of the head, and then it shoots out of his hand, and maybe it bounced around on the dashboard for a while or something, maybe it hit off the side of the door. But then once it falls down to the floorboard and they found it at his feet. So the lie is that he did not put the gun inside of his mouth. It wasn't intraoral. So whoever said that, I don't know if that was the coroner who did it, or the somebody who did the autopsy, or maybe the media, report that I had read had, just wrote it down wrong or some shit. But that's a lie. That's a lie. And in order to discern the truth, in order to make any sort of judgments or any sort of decisions after the fact, you got to know the truth. Objective justice stands upon objective truth. And so objective justice, the guy kills himself. There's a couple minor injuries. You could point to the Green Berets or something else, but I think ultimately the justice has been meted out. Justice has been meted out. And so now we just want to, I guess, debunk any of the debunking, because unless you got some hardcore evidence to say something else was going on. Now, I got some other questions, but, don't fucking lie. Don't fucking lie. He put the gun inside of his mouth and he had shot before the explosion. He raised his hand up. His head turned as the explosion was going on. So if he did shoot, it was after the explosion was detonating, after it was, exploding, after there was already a fireball, he had raised his hand up. So, and also, there's a suggestion this guy's going to make later on about how maybe Cybertrucks can drive by themselves. So maybe but the eyeballs have to be open. So maybe he wasn't alive and the eyeballs were kept open the whole time. And so you just got this self-driving truck with the eyeballs, still open. And he was already dead and they just went ahead. Well, okay, there's a couple problems with that. There's an SDMI chip that said that the Cybertruck was never put into self-driving mode. And like I said, there's video of, him moving his head and moving his hand during the explosion. There's also video of him driving around the Trump Hotel that morning, right? He drove there for a minute, came back 30 minutes later, some shit. So there's videotape of him driving around right before it happened. It's him. He's in the vehicle. He's very much alive. And it's him. It's him. So if you were trying to say that it was a self-driving truck, there's no evidence that says that it was a self-driving truck. You're just kind of making shit up just to sort of get clicks. That's the problem with the algorithm, is that conspiracy theories are more interesting than the damn truth. It's easier to use your imagination, right? This is the deep state, and they're trying to get us to go to war with Iran, and it's MK Ultra, and it's Operation Mockingbird, and all this other horse shit.
But notice that there are spell check red squigglies in here. And there's a cursor, and we've learned this before. This is not how an email appears when it is received in your inbox. This is how an email appears when you're typing it. But this is what the Sean Ryan Show put out as the email that was received, allegedly. And it alleges that the drones over the East Coast are Chinese tech and that they could bomb the White House at any minute. And it's like this whole, basically it alleges that World War III is about to happen between the U.S. and China, and there's nothing we can do to stop it. And he's like trying to be a whistleblower to like stop it. But if this email is real, it's like the perfect food for the military-industrial complex and for World War III warmongering. But it gets weirder. So the Las Vegas officials and the FBI, who are totally trustworthy, have been assessing the scene. Hey, Gigi, don't do that. Stay over there. That's where they found the passport. They also found an incinerated Desert Eagle, which apparently he used to shoot himself in the head before the explosion. It was dropped on the floor right in between his feet in the driver's seat. And if you know anything about how powerful these guns are, you imagine shooting yourself in the head with it and then it dropping straight down instead of like just flying into the Not to mention that no one has reported any report from a gunshot in the car at the scene at the time, and that is like the most powerful handgun you can buy.
So it's good that he's bringing up all these questions, and it is important to ask these questions, but eventually you got to start making conclusions. The discernment of truth is vital. It's absolutely vital to know what had happened. So I got a couple questions. This guy didn't have any criminal history. This Matthew Allen Livelsberger, he didn't have any criminal history. He's a high school, football star. He's this decorated Green Beret, even got a Valor, for under fire. Got some medals, Bronze Star, including one for Valor under fire. He goes to college in Vermont. He went to Norwich University. He's 100% patriot. That's what, we're being told. I've seen him in a bunch of Donald Trump garb. He said that Donald Trump was the soldier's best friend. And then Elon Musk had spent $250 million on Donald's campaign. So, that's kind of interesting. So he's a big patriot, but he was going to do this, just all symbolic in a way. It felt that was all he was intending to do, was to make a symbolic thing, a wake-up call. It actually kind of worked because he's the only person that had died, and there were 7 injuries. And so you can't really get mad at him too much for anything because there was a couple minor injuries, but no fatalities. The windows of the lobby didn't even get blown up. But my question is this. So you got this Rambo, this super soldier, this Green Beret who's 100% patriot, right? So basically the best of the best, one of the, best Americans out here. We love the troops, support the troops, God save the troops. And yet you got some government agency that was stalking him. Which government agency was stalking Matthew Allen Livelsberger? Was it the EPA? Did he one day dump some oil? Did he change his oil somewhere on the side of the road and dump the oil in the middle of the desert at the Grand Canyon of Arizona? Is that why the EPA was following him and stalking him? I want to know which federal agencies were following him and stalking him. He definitely believed that he was being followed, that he was being stalked, that he was about to get arrested, that they were going to, jump on him like a bitch. And I want to know who it was. I want to know which federal agency, state agency, which, and for what reason. Why was he being stalked by the federal government, this superhero, this Rambo, this super soldier, this super patriot, 100% patriot? Why would the federal government stalk this super patriot? I'm also kind of curious, why did he go to Las Vegas, New Mexico? Did he get lost? Why would he go to Las Vegas, New Mexico? That doesn't make any sense. Just to go check out their In-N-Out burger or whatever to see if they got some good Dollar General sales there, to check out the local grocery. Wait, there's grocery stores? What's this grocery store? Why go to Las Vegas, New Mexico? What government agency was stalking him and why? And then, did he shoot himself or not? Because if there's a gunshot wound to the head, did he shoot himself right at the last second? Because that's, his head's moving and his hand is moving. And if there was any gunshot, it would have been at that moment. But that doesn't conclusively say that there was a gunshot, because wouldn't there have been a blast when you have seen the recoil, when you've seen the fire come out of the, the end of the gun? And then, so there's a couple questions that I have.
A whole conspiracy on this thread is Teslas can drive themselves. And I don't know if anyone's ever tested the self-driving, because it'll watch you, and if you don't look upwards, it'll tell you to look, or it'll stop the self-driving, so you can't just look down at your phone or close your eyes and go to sleep. But has anyone ever tried it with a dead body that has its eyes open? Because that is probably possible. It's unclear. Because allegedly the remains of the person found in the front seat, though charred, burnt beyond recognition, the DNA did not match the DNA of this guy's recent child. Apparently his wife just broke up with him, and they were trying to paint that as like he's angry. It's like, Green Berets get divorces all the time. Like, maybe the kid wasn't his kid. I think it's more likely that the body wasn't his body. Because again, in the email that was allegedly sent by him, theoretically, it's very clear that he's not planning to kill himself. He's planning to escape to Mexico and to do this whole thing in order to bring attention to this and to whistleblow and to be taken seriously and to get this out to as much news and publicity as possible and then escape to Mexico. He says it 2 different times in this email. The trunk was loaded up with all these crazy fireworks, and there was some gas cans in the cab that caused the explosion to sort of... So a little unclear. But it seems like the explosion was intended to not cause a bunch of death, but just to cause a scene. Like, he chose a Cybertruck, which is bulletproof. Like, the worst car to build a car bomb in.
So, he had bought 2 semi-automatic handguns. That's what the ATF had said. And, of course, the ATF is famous for Waco. I think Ruby Ridge as well. He had gotten married twice. The first wife, way back, 2010 or 2012. But he just got married to his second wife, Jennifer Ann Davis. And this is the second wife that he's going to get into an argument over infidelity. And was it he was cheating, she was cheating? They got married at the El Paso County courthouse, or they got a marriage license. They got a marriage license in El Paso County, Colorado on July 8th, 2022. And they had an 8-month-old baby. They had an 8-month-old baby. Now, he had just mentioned about the DNA of the body didn't match the baby. Well, he says it's more likely that the body isn't his. Why would that be more likely? Why would that be more likely? Or maybe this Jennifer Ann Davis just flat out lied to him and had sex with some other man and was trying to get Matthew Allen Livelsberger to take care of another man's baby so that way he'll continue to love her. Now, that would be a personal reason. That would be, a reason that could set somebody off. being stalked, that would be a reason that could set somebody off. Being stalked, finding out the bit. But then he is right that the Green Beret, he already had a divorce. They have to go through these, rigorous torture assessments. And so with the rigorous torture assessments, what if you married a woman and you had a baby and it's only 8 months? So, Naomi Judd, she lied to her husband at the time for like 10, 20 years or some shit. So it's almost like, give me my fucking life back. But it was 1 year, right? At the worst, at the most, the baby was 8 months. And so it wasn't like Jennifer Ann Davis had taken, a decade or two off of his life. But it would be, jarring and it would suck. And that's definitely, evidence of, her not really loving him. We got married till death do us part. And, we've only been married for 2 years. And, while I was away, you slept with somebody else and then had a baby, and you said it was by me and you was going to just carry on with this bullshit lie. So that would be tough, right? But he's got friends all over the place. He's in Vermont. He was born and raised. He got educated. He went to college in Vermont. He was born and raised in Ohio. He was living in Colorado. So it seems like he's got friends all over the place. So I don't know why he couldn't have reached out to any of his friends or talked to any of his family. I mean, this does seem like kind of an extreme thing to do. I mean, okay, you got lied to. She deceived you, but you're 37. The average lifespan is 77, so you still got 40 years late. You still got 40 more years on the average. So why, go out like this? What is the propelling factor? What's the gravitic propulsion that would make a person, just say, who gives a damn about my life? Who gives a damn about anything? He still had 40 more years left. So usually a suicide happens when somebody thinks that there's no light at the end of the tunnel. They just don't see any light at the end of the tunnel. There is just nothing there. There's no options. There's nowhere to go. There's just no hope whatsoever. Just absolute hopelessness. And it wasn't absolute hopelessness. He had texted his former girlfriend that he was driving the Tesla. He felt like he was Batman, or he was in Halo. He was just feeling like he was all futuristic, driving this cool ass fucking car. It's just wild that a person who's a super patriot would go out like this. You want to talk about privileges, so all those privileges he's going to throw away. And then when it comes to privileges, there's white people that was shot by, police as well. So when it comes to privileges, I don't know about that whole damn conversation, frankly. But I got a question for Jennifer Ann Davis. Was it his kid or wasn't it his kid? Are you the reason why he did this? Did you break his heart so damn bad that he was just like, fuck it. I got this information about the war crimes, and I know that this thing's happening between America and China with the gravitic propulsion drones. So the gravitic propulsion drones between U.S. and China and the war crimes, is that why he's being stalked? He was going to be a whistleblower about the war crimes, or he tried to testify or some shit, then he got marked. Because we saw what happened to, Julian Assange and Bradley Chelsea Manning. We saw what happened to Edward Snowden. You tell the truth about America, and it's the criminals don't go down. The people in the Apache helicopter who killed the journalist and killed the kids don't go down. The Epsteiners don't go down. The war criminals don't go down. But it's the person who videotaped it, who got the videotape, who passed the videotape to the journalist or to the webmaster, and the person who put it online. That's who gets in trouble. So that's interesting. If a criminal commits a crime and then somebody says, hey, that criminal committed a crime, that second person isn't the criminal. The fucking criminal is the criminal. Like fucking shit.
And then he filled it with fireworks instead of he's a Green Beret. He could have built a real high power IED that could have blown the building up, theoretically. And then he says in the letter that he's trying to keep a low profile because he's being followed and they attempted to abduct him, but also that he's trying to keep a high profile because they know he has this IED, this car bomb rigged up, and so he got a Cybertruck, which is why would you get a Cybertruck? The police have had no trouble tracking the Cybertruck both in Las Vegas on CCTV footage and on its supercharger route across the country. The police said that they have tracked the purchase of the firearm, specifically the Desert Eagle, back in Colorado.
Who was going to abduct him? Why would the EPA, that's that's too much regulations. The EPA, he changed his car oil one time and he's got electric cars, so I guess, do they still got oil? I think they still run on a little bit of gas. It's not pure electric, is it? I'm not sure how. But it's probably not the EPA, but if it is a federal agency, I want to know what federal agency and why. Why were you fucking stalking him? Why were you goddamn putting all this fucking pressure on him? The FBI was stalking MLK. And then when MLK got shot in the head, the FBI were right there on the scene. The FBI were stalking Malcolm X, right? You don't want to have a black messiah. So they were stalking Malcolm X, and they had a bunch of people that had to infiltrate the inner circles. So they were stalking Malcolm X. They had all these people in the inner circles, and were they just assets, or were they actually on the damn payroll? And so the FBI is all over, Malcolm X, all over Martin Luther King Jr., and then also Fred Hampton. I'm pretty sure it was the Chicago police, and I want to say it was the FBI. And that was just flat out. They shot 200 shots. They went into the apartment building. One shot comes out. Essentially assassinated a guy who said he was a communist and wanted to unite the people, and said that he loved the people. And he says that he wasn't going to be, you don't fight racism with more racism, you fight it with solidarity. And you don't fight white capitalism with black capitalism, but you fight it with socialism. And so they flat out just fucking murdered Fred Hampton while he was fucking sleeping. And so that's one thing that the Trumpers and, the leftist radicals could have a commonality on. The Trumpers will just say, hey, the FBI is picking on poor Trump, but the FBI, we do need a federal police force, but they do have this COINTEL problem, this racist problem where they just kind of go after political enemies. And that's some bullshit. They go after peaceniks, anti-war people, and, and Martin Luther King Jr., basically the Jesus Christ of the modern era, American Jesus Christ, a true blue Christian who believed in non-violence, to turn the other cheek,
There's a 3-day wait on purchasing a firearm in Colorado, so we had to have initiated the purchase 3 days before leaving Colorado to come to Las Vegas for this event. But then in the email, he gives, as confirmation that he is who he says he is. First off, I'm not under duress or hostile influence or control. My first car was a 2006 black Ford Mustang V6 for verification. Well, people verified. People pulled his vehicle records, and actually he has never owned a 1996, was it? Ford Mustang, or a 2006 Ford Mustang, but his first car was a Ford Mustang, just totally different year. So it's not really, could be that because it's 30 years ago, it's his own car 20 years ago, and he just...
So there's more to the video, but that's some interesting stuff. So why did he point out a car that he didn't own? And was it his parents' car? No, they pulled those records too, and they didn't find that he had owned the, 2006 car that he had owned from before. So that's interesting, and there's more to this. You could check it out. I'll just scroll here and just listen to one more minute of it.
And they are wise to the way this world works. And seeing how X has debunked all their other bullshit this last year, I'd bet right now it looks like they decided, what if we need to start our psyops using the decentralized media space as our patsy, as our pipeline of information, to deliver the information so that the internet thinks it's real. So the internet thinks it's coming from inside the house, right? And so they concoct a situation in which a known and trusted and verified internet...
So that sounds like the moon landing. I mean, why go through such elaborate means? You're going to spend millions of dollars to do this crazy-ass thing when it'd been just as easy to land on the damn moon. And if you're going to try to tell me that the official narrative is a little wrong because he didn't shoot himself, before the explosion, and that's one lie. So we've caught him in one lie that I know of for sure. But that's not conclusive that, something else was going on. That basically no evidence has been shown that say that, he was shot in New Mexico and then that the thing had self-driven. And Occam's razor says that the most simplest explanation is the most likely explanation. So if the most simplest explanation is the most likeliest explanation, he's sitting on this information about the war crimes in Afghanistan in the Nimruz province that happened on May 5th, 2019, where you did have 200 civilians who were killed, including 80 kids. 80 kids. And then he's Green Beret, so he's probably seen some of his brothers, his band of brothers get shot or go down, and I'm sure that broke his heart too. So he said he was cleansing his soul. He was purifying his soul. And then couple that with some personal issues. I think essentially the conclusion is right? He's suicidal with PTSD issues when it comes to the war, when it comes to the combat experience that he had, plus the his personal life experiences. Combine those two things, that's that's a little toxic cocktail. It's a perfect storm. So I could see, and then plus the stalking. So he's sitting on this information. He's being stalked by the federal government, the EPA, or whoever, right? Some federal agency was stalking him, and that means some federal agency's got some file on him, and they must have had some pretense. They must have had some reason, right? What the hell was that reason? Why were you stalking him? Why did you think he was such a big threat? Is it that important to cover up the crimes of the government? Because if our government is good, let's say we did go into Afghanistan and Iraq to get them freedom and democracy. Let's say we actually did want to win hearts and minds, and we want to protect and serve, and we want to give them a constitution and a bill of rights, federalism and the rule of law and bicameralism. Let's say all those things are true. If that's the case, well, you don't want your troops and your soldiers sitting there killing innocent people. You don't want the troops and the soldiers, doing all these dastardly, foul, evil deeds. You went in there, you got the operation done, and then you walked away. Now, if you had to, do something in the spur of the moment, okay. But sometimes these crimes, let's just go back to the Apache helicopter with Julian Assange and Bradley Manning. That had happened, and what did they conclude with that? Who were those damn helicopter pilots? They were sitting there laughing the entire damn time, and they didn't give a shit that they killed kids and that they killed some journalists. And so, it seems to me that it's fucking preposterous and it's ridiculous that we wouldn't have, court-martialed the Apache helicopters. The Blackwater guys, they're going to get pardoned. So if we are a fair and balanced and even-handed and fair and square empire, then we went in and you did the operation. You don't need to be, doing rapes on the side. You don't need to be stealing people's stuff, stealing people's gold. You don't need to be, doing anything extra. You don't need to be desecrating a corpse. You don't need to be torturing people and taking weird photographs and shit, right? You went in, you had to do the operation, you had to detain some people, but you don't have to be pigs. You don't have to lose your fucking mind. What point is it if you inherit the entire world and lose your soul? So I think it's fucking bullshit that there's people in the United States government that would think that the person who witnessed the truth and, was sitting on the truth and wanted to tell about the truth, that's the person they would rather go after instead of actually arresting the person who, ordered the operation, who set up the operation. Where did that information come from? Apparently they were going to bomb a bunch of drug labs in Afghanistan. Instead they killed a whole bunch of civilians that had nothing to do with the Taliban, including 80 kids. So, there are some questions there, but I think this guy goes a little bit too far, and then Joe Rogan is the one, peddling these conspiracy theorists, so it's like, Jesus Christ, don't you get enough clicks? Why don't you try to figure out the truth for once, Joe Rogan? Try to discern the truth, alright? Jesus Christ.